Hey, that's the one. Hopefully that should be working. Good evening. It's Mike here, Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. That pretty young thing over there is Kath. You can't see her, but you may overhear her voice giving me directions and helping to produce the content. So hopefully you're all having a great evening. It is Monday the 30th of December 2019. Not long to go now until we're into a whole new decade, and hopefully with a whole new decade of great new computer components. And probably along with that is going to be a whole host of new questions and things for me to answer and try and get my head round. So hopefully you're all having a good evening tonight. If you are joining us tonight live, thank you very much. We do appreciate you stopping by. If you're watching this in the aftermath or after it's been recorded, then again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. It really does help all the content get sort of elevated within the YouTube community. I don't even know if that's the right word. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've kind of lost the plot. I don't even know really what day it is, what hour it is.
But you do know.
What the hell is going on, but
you do know.
I do know that we are joined tonight. We have a special guest, and the special guest is Peanut, the hamster. He is a hamster, right? I guess it is a hamster. This is Peanut Donaldson, and he's flown in all the way across the country to be with us tonight. So if I've got any questions that I can't answer myself, then we're going to hand over to Peanut, and hopefully she will be able to help you out with your technical questions. So the theory behind this show is we're going to go through some of the questions I've been getting over the week, and possibly later than that because I haven't answered them recently because it's been Christmas and I've been having a little bit of time off and trying to have a little bit of relaxation, which hasn't really worked out. I've been super busy and all day today been making videos, and we've got like 4 videos actually in the pipeline ready to be released already, so we might have to have a few days off over the New Year period. But yeah, we're going to try and answer some of your questions, and if you've got any questions that want to be answered as well, you can ask them in the live chat and I'll do my best to answer them as well. And if they're related to something I'm actually talking about, that is perfect. But yeah, we'll just wing it and see what happens. As per usual, I have forgotten to get up the live chat, so I can't actually see what the heck is going on. So let me just pull up the live chat, if I can even remember how to do that now. Brain has actually gone. Where are we? Now actually the YouTube Creator Studio, not to bore you guys to tears, but the YouTube Creator Studio, although at first I was a little bit sort of hesitant and I wasn't overly keen, but actually it's not too bad.
It's not too good, right?
Is my internet actually working?
It is very slow. The Creator Studio.
Come on Creator Studio, you can do it. Oh, well, straight away the super chats have kicked in. And Kath's not even ready for this. Now she is.
I should turn that off.
Kath's falling over the camera equipment and everything. Now I would love to thank whoever it is who sent it in, but I can't even see. Kath, can you remember actually how we do this at all? I've not got a clue.
Meats, Adventures. A sparkly peanut.
Where are we? Videos. Ah, videos, that's what we click on. Okay, let's have a look. Videos. Oh, that's right, yeah, I click on live. Oh dear, yeah. Ask me your technical questions because I'm sure to be able to help them. I can't even help myself right now. Right, view in live control room, that's the one we want. It's really hot in here tonight. I've put the heating on by mistake, put it on a little bit too high, and I'm actually melting a little bit. So let's get the live chat out. Pop out chat. And that might eventually run. Live chat, all messages are available. Right, so let's say some quick hellos. Oh, we'll say a quick thank you to whoever it was. Was it Paul Donaldson?
Yeah, Captain Meats.
Captain Meats Adventures has given us a £5 super chat. Nice one, Captain Meat. It's a sparkly peanut. Big thanks. There we go, everybody. Peanut is with us tonight. Quick hello to Emma and Lewis while we're at it, in case you're watching. If not, you'll have to rewind this and watch it later. So who we got? We got Angry Dodge is in the house, or Angry Doge. Aletta is in the house as per usual. Thanks, nice to see you again, Aletta. Captain in the house, obviously. Who else we got here? Captain Meets Adventures. And Stephen Simmons, evening to you. And Glenn's in the house as well. How are you doing? Do you know what? I couldn't even see where it said Glenn. Oh yeah, I can, yeah.
He snuck in.
I got my glasses on, can't see a thing. That's better.
Alexa says hamsters are good, especially with hot sauce.
Ooh, dear.
That is Captain Meat.
Captain Meat. Okay, so they're talking about CPUs. So let's have a quick look at some of the questions we've had and see if we can give some answers. Now, some of these I'm going to have to refer to the Tinternet to get the exact answer because I haven't got all of it in my head because that would just be ridiculous. So let's have a quick look and see what we got first of all. So here's a question coming, first of all, from Sam Neil. Sam Neil is, or Sean. Would I say Sam?
Yeah.
I've got my glasses on as well and I cannot see a bloody thing. Let's take these things off. That's better. Sean Neil. Yeah, that's better. Sean Neil. Sean Neil says, I work in a noisy... Actually, I was better to say what video this is related to. So this is related to the... What was it? Oh, this was the Zulu, the wearable headphones, the Bluetooth headphones. So Sam has said, I work in a noisy factory. I usually keep a regular Bluetooth speaker in my tool cart to keep the tunes with me. These are a much better alternative for me. Easy to pause if I need to speak to anyone. Nobody else even pays attention or can even really hear what I'm listening to for the most part. So, fantastic. It's nice to see that someone's actually watched the video, taken heed and got these things and used them in real life. Absolutely brilliant. So thank you for that, Sean. The next one is from Brosty. Now, Brosty, this is in relation to my video for the best Micro ATX B450 motherboard, which was the B450M Steel Legend from ASRock, which actually still to this day is what I would consider probably the best of the B450 boards of that price point. You want to spend a little bit more money, then you can get a better board, but bang for buck, seriously, the ASRock boards are just killing it at the moment. They really, really are. So Bross's question is, will this work for the Ryzen 5 3600 right out of the box without a BIOS update if I buy it right now? And that's a really good question actually, and with a lot of people maybe upgrading from the 2000 series to the 3000 series Ryzen chips, it is a concern because you don't want to get a board which doesn't have BIOS flashback features. If you're just buying a chip and you haven't got an older chip to upgrade from, it can be a real pain in the balls. So for that particular board, I did have a quick look on the ASRock website. Now, if you buy a board with BIOS revision P2.10 or higher, it will work straight out of the box, no problems whatsoever. Now, at the moment, the latest version is P2.70, so there's 5 or 6 incremental BIOS updates since then. And actually, if I just go back and double check if I've still got it in here, I think I might have. So yeah, the P2.1 BIOS, let's see when that was actually released, so that'll give you an idea. Obviously, I can't guarantee that the board you're going to buy is going to have that BIOS or newer based on the time, but it's going to give you a pretty good idea. Now actually, they're on BIOS version 2.9 at the moment, so they're updating it pretty frequently. Now the 2.1 BIOS was originally released on, where are we? The middle of May 2019. So I would say there's a pretty strong chance if you did buy that board now, it's likely that it's going to have that revision or higher. In fact, actually the very first release of the board was version 1, then it went to 2, then 2.1. So I would say it's a very strong chance that it's going to work. Now, if you're not sure, if you do buy one of these ASRock motherboards, the B450M Steel Series, and in fact a lot of motherboards these days, if you look at the BIOS chip, quite often that someone's actually put a sticker on it saying which version is currently installed on the board. So even before you assemble the system or put a CPU pins onto the board, you can look at the BIOS and see immediately if it's going to work. Obviously, if you're buying it from Amazon, and if you do, don't forget to use our affiliate links. But if you do buy it from Amazon, obviously, you can just open the box, look at the BIOS, and you can tell immediately if it's going to work straight off. Obviously, it might be a DOA board, which obviously nothing's going to help for that, but you can just open the board, look at the BIOS ticket. If it's wrong, if it's with Amazon, you can send it straight back and get a replacement, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll get a newer version. But I would say, due to how long ago that was, like May, it's like 6-7 months ago. So I think the likelihood of you getting a board with a newer version BIOS should be absolutely fine. So I don't really see any potential problems there. So hopefully, Brosty, that answers your question. And I do get a lot of questions like that where people say, Mike, do you think that my CPU, like insert CPU type here, is this going to work with my board? And obviously I can Google it for you, but it's so much quicker and easier for yourselves. And obviously you'll get the information firsthand and a lot quicker. If you're looking for a motherboard and you're not sure if your chip's going to work with it, go to the motherboard manufacturer's website, look on their QVL list, look on their supported processors list, look at the BIOS revisions and see what BIOS revision you're going to need. And that's really going to give you a good idea. It's not going to guarantee it, obviously, but it will give you a fantastic idea of whether or not it's actually going to work. So, yeah, if you can get a motherboard which says on the actual box, Ryzen 3000 ready, the majority of them you can see from the pictures when someone's trying to sell it. It's not always easy to do that if they're using stock images. Sometimes they might not use the right image. So again, that's not always guaranteed. But certainly do look for that Ryzen 3000 BIOS ready, or spend a little bit of extra money, safeguard yourself and get a board which has some sort of BIOS flashback option, either by USB or however it is. That's the one real way of guaranteeing that you're going to be able to get up and running straight away, even if you do have to go to the local library or to a neighbour's house just to download a BIOS stick onto a USB flash drive. Obviously as well, if you haven't got a USB flash drive, then definitely order one of those at the same time. Again, if you're doing it through Amazon, don't forget to use our affiliate links because every little helps. It doesn't cost you anything to use our affiliate links. All the kickback that we get, all small as it is, all comes from Amazon's end. So you don't pay any more for it at all. Literally, it all comes out of Amazon's pocket, and it does help the channel immensely. So hopefully, Brosty, that answers your question. Next comment or question is from Ugly Bob. Thanks for watching, Ugly Bob. Ugly Bob says, hey Mike, my Power Color 580 Dragon was doing exactly the same as what mine was in the video. Now this was related to the video we did on the Radeon RX 580. Mine was overheating, the fans were absolutely buggered. So what I did was I put on 2 Arctic cooling fans and it actually dropped the temperatures quite a bit, made it much more bearable. So Ugly Bob's gone one bit further and he's ordered 2 Be Quiet 120mm case fans and fitted them to the chassis as directed in the video. And he says, I'm not joking, the running temperatures dropped by 20 degrees. That's an amazing result, that really is. 20 degrees, that's a big jump, especially for a GPU. And he says, and with them being Be Quiet fans, I have them maxed out via the BIOS and it can barely hear the card. So he says, thanks for the video, really appreciate it. Well, we really appreciate it, Bob. Thanks for letting us know how it's gone. And I'm super stoked that you've managed to get a good result out of that. Obviously it's cost you a few quid because you've had to buy a couple of fans, but definitely worth buying a couple of fans for what, 10, 15 pounds each, rather than buying yourself a new GPU or risking component failure. So that's fantastic. Let's go to another one now. So actually I'm gonna have a quick drink of tea a minute. Cup of tea. Can't beat a good cup of tea. Right, where's the chat? Yeah, making sure no one's fallen asleep, including myself. So, the next one is from, where are we? Resonates. I had to work out what I was then. Resonates. So Resonate says, I try installing the Adrenaline 2020 driver and the install begins and then stops halfway, saying that I don't have permission to complete the install. I checked and I am definitely running as administrator. Any ideas on why this may be happening and how to fix it, please? Now, this is very similar to the original video where it's a good idea to use the DDU, so uninstall your graphics card driver, clear out any remnants. That's always a really good option. What you can do as well, the actual AMD folder, if you look on your C drive, go into C drive, I think it's directly in AMD, it might also be in program files, but essentially just go into the folder for the AMD drivers or where they reside, or where they are, right click on the folder, choose properties, and make sure that the file has got the appropriate permissions for your system. So if you're not sure if it has, just give it full read-write control throughout the system. It's not going to do the system any harm. Ultimately, what's happening here is your system, for some reason, either the registry or something is corrupted and is not giving the correct permissions to your system files. Essentially, your best bet ideally, first one is the full nuclear option, which is to do a complete reinstall, start again from fresh. For most people, that's still a little bit too much to do. So one thing you can do is run things like System File Checker, make sure all the files are as they should be and have got the correct permissions. You can use System File Checker to do that. Use the sfc.exe command /scan now, and that will do a scan as you wait. If you do that, it will also tell you if any files are corrupted, and then you can go ahead about trying to recover them. There's various videos I've already done on that, so I'm not going to go into massive detail here. But essentially, you have got system file corruption somewhere, so you do need to look a little bit further than actually just reinstalling and uninstalling drivers. There's something critically going on in your system which does need rectifying. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're on the Titanic and you're just chucking buckets of water over, but you've still got loads of water coming in, so it's all going to end and it's going to capsize. So sort the problem out now before it gets too bad and corrupts your system entirely. So hopefully that gives you some options there, or some ways of going about it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let's see, which one is this? Actually, this is an interesting one. So this is from Billy Bob Bob. Now this was, again, on one of the ASRock boards. This was the best AMD B450, and this is one I did earlier before the Steel series. So at the time, this was the cream of the crop. This was the ASRock, the B450 Pro 4. Now the B450 Pro 4 is a great board, and essentially the Steel series board was pretty much designed around the exact same chipset, layout, VRMs, the whole shooting match. So the question was, if I just scroll down through, yeah, it says Mike's Unboxing Reviews Now 2, ASRock B450M Steel Legend versus ASRock B450M Pro 4. The Steel Legend says it's a 6-phase 60 amp power chokes, whereas the Pro 4 says 9-phase 42 amp power chokes. Which one's VRM is actually better? Now this is a little bit of an open-ended question. Now I did refer back to the previous video I did, which find links up here later on, which was the Ryzen 3000 potential compatibility chart, which was done to tell which boards have got better VRMs and will be more suited for certain Ryzen 3000 CPUs. I went back and had a look at that, and from what I could remember, I remember both boards being very similar. The only difference really essentially being the Steel Legend has the extra addressable RGB headers and some extra RGB actually on the board itself. But for better or for worse, essentially it was the same board. And looking closer at the VRMs on the variant 1, now there is two variants of the B450 Pro M, Pro 4, and also the Steel Legend, so that it's not entirely black and white on this. But essentially the first variant had exactly the same capacitors, chokes, the whole lot. The doublers, the phases, they were both 4-phase boards. So I'm not sure where you say it says the Pro 4 says 9 phases at 42 amps. I couldn't find a board with that. So unfortunately ASRock do tend to do slightly different boards in different regions. And if you look on the ASRock site, if you actually go to the top on each individual board, there is an asterisk and it says some features may vary due to region or that kind of thing. So it's not always as clear cut as that. But essentially the Steel Legend and the Pro 4, there's very little between them. Some of the manufacturing processes may have changed slightly. I would say if anything, the slightly newer board, the Steel Legend, would be potentially the better option. It also has slightly better VRM coolers on there, slightly thicker. But the Pro 4's had some pretty decent cooling on them as well. So essentially they're both the same board is what I'm trying to say really. So I would go with whichever one turns out to be the cheapest for you in your particular region. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, I think it's because I answered it already a little bit. Next one is from SVT Contour. Now this is actually on the question on what I said. I love this case. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, it is, yeah. This is the InWin 103, which is a newer version of the 101C, which had RGB lighting, and I actually really like. And that's the 101C behind me, and the 103 is what is going to be my video editing PC very shortly, but that's another story. He says, he or she rather says, or not even he or she, he, she, or LBGT, whatever. SVT Contour says, is it my imagination, or is there no hard drive activity light on this case? And actually, there isn't. There isn't any hard drive activity light. And actually, I was going to check to see if there is any on the 101C, which I don't think there is either. Yes, there is. The 101C has some on the very front, just underneath the power button. The 103 I've actually got packed away in the box over there, so I can't actually see. And I've got to be honest with you, I cannot remember hooking up a hard drive LED. I definitely hooked up a power switch, but I don't remember hard drive LED, so it is very possible that you're right. I don't think there is hard drive activity LED on the 103. So I can't answer your question completely, but I think you actually are right. As soon as I get the case out, I'll possibly update the comment on there and let you know. Here's one from No Sounding Calls. This is one of the early videos, which is actually the most popular video on the channel, which just goes to show how shockingly bad some Android phones can be. Jolly Mensa says, I just tried this today, 29th of December 2019, and it really worked. If you don't have the voice option, go to Google Protect from the settings menu. So that's an update from the version that I did originally. I think the original version I did was back on the Android version 7. Obviously we're now on 10, so the video is getting a little bit old now, and there are some slightly different tweaks, but just goes to show that that video is a great video. I was really proud of that video, even though it didn't look very good, but the information was completely valid and worked, and I think it's getting on towards nearly 1 million views at the moment, so obviously a lot of people have been really interested in that video and have found it very useful, so fantastic. And to Jolly Mensa, thank you for your comment on that in actually the update. So let's have a look, see if we've got any other questions in here, and we'll come back in a minute. So we've got ClickTech Kev's in the house. Good evening to you, Kev. TT Technologies in the house as well. Who else we got? So Angry Dodge is talking about his new system. And Angry Dodge is going to buy Crowbar 45's RX 570 from the Discord. Now, for those of you who are watching this video or you're new to our channel and our community, we do also have a Discord community server, which you're more than welcome to join. So if you want to talk about tech or post daft memes or just slag off other things in the press and post and what have you, feel free to do so. You can join us. The links will be in the video description, and maybe one of the moderators will post a link for it now, so you can join the server. You can join, doesn't cost you anything, and the information there is really good, useful. If you want a kind of almost like a one-to-one run through with problems you may be having with your computer, your phone, your video editing setup, your camera, whatever it may be, if you need a little bit of help or just want to chat to someone about tech stuff, feel free to join us. Some of the moderators in the chat at the moment are actually also moderators or expert users on our forum, so you can chat to them there and ask any questions. I would say special shouts out go to Glenn, C McKnight, British Noob, lots of others that I just can't remember all the names right now off the top of my head, but fantastic job they do. Angry Doge is in there, Crowbar 45. Kev also drops in from time to time when he's got a few minutes spare, so if you just want to talk to another YouTuber other than myself, we've got some YouTubers who hang out in there as well, so you're more than welcome to come in and have a chat. So that is that. Alexa says folding screens seem silly to me. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Yes, I think that is this is in relation to the new folding screen phones, and I personally can't see it being a good thing. I don't think the technology is quite there yet. Although you can get flexible screens, OLEDs and LCDs and what have you, I think the test of time is going to be the test of time. So to see how long they actually last for. As we know, the first editions of the Samsung Fold, most of them got recalled from reviewers, etc., who are experiencing problems from pretty much from day one, which I think says it speaks volumes about what is going to go on. So I don't think, I don't think folding phones are quite there yet. It would be really nice, and it's a super futuristic thing to do. I would have thought, if anything, foldable keyboards would be one of the things to actually come out in the market more mainstream than they have already. But again, the technology hasn't been particularly good. Let's see if there's any other questions in here. Captain Meets Adventure says, guys, don't forget to like and share the video. And Supernight quite aptly puts, or dislike if you don't like it. Captain Meets Adventure says, dislikers sod off. Oh dear. Captain Meets Adventure says, which will win out of Google Stadia, the new Xbox, or PS5? I don't think that either one of those will win. I think the PC will always be the supreme leader of all things gaming and computing. The iPhone and the iPad have done extremely well, and at the moment the iPhone XR, which both Kath and I are both using, at the moment is getting 60% of all smartphone sales. That's 60% of all smartphone sales, which is, well, that's insane. That is absolutely insane if you think about it.
It's over half for one brand.
Yeah, it's over half of the market for one particular version of a phone, which is insane.
When you think how many Androids.
Which just goes to show, like, there's a billion different Android phones out there, and they're selling tons of them. It comes down to what has always been the case. There's never been great money in hardware. It's always been in software. Look at Microsoft, look at Apple. They've pinned their colors to the mast, or whatever it is, the phrase is, and they've stuck by their software. They've got these kind of semi-closed wall environments where they don't allow their software to be made kind of open source and stuff like that for the majority of it. And it pays dividends. NVIDIA have done the same thing. They've really kept their cards close to their chest, and they've not really shared much of their technology. They have done slightly with G-Sync now, opening up to to AMD to work with FreeSync monitors, that kind of stuff. But essentially, look at the people that are making money in the industry: Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA. And why? Because they've stuck with software. They've made their software what it is, and all the others are trying to follow suit and not making a great deal of money in it. Letter makes a good comment. Anyone wanting to know more about VRM should watch Buildzoid's videos. Drink some coffee though first. They are quite lengthy. Angry Doe says, Mike, do you use every PC in your house? If not, why don't you use it maybe for Bitcoin mining?
Because we pay the electric?
Yeah, because we pay the electric. Bitcoin mining now isn't as profitable as it has been. And actually, let's go back to the first question. Do I use every PC in the house? Not all the time, because I'm only one person and I have things to do. Yeah, I've only got 2 pairs of hands, isn't it? So no is the answer. Kath's got her PC. I've got my video editing PC. I've got my streaming PC. I've got my stream laptop. There is a media center in the front room. And I've got my Surface Pro 3, which has been relegated now. What else have I got? Obviously I've got my phone. I've got a PC in the works. So no, I can't physically use all my PCs at the same time, but I do try and make use of them. And they all kind of they all can multitask or multi-purpose, but most of them have kind of specific tasks. So the video editing PC, I'm trying to keep clean, keep any test software off of it, try and keep games off of it so I don't get distracted and stuff. The streaming PC, I keep pretty much just stuff I need for making videos, i.e. stuff that I stream like this now, and when I'm making content, so how to do fixing graphics drivers, all that kind of stuff. Most of that is actually on that PC. So yeah, they've all got their individual purposes, which they kind of slightly do, but there is little bits of overlap. So all the PCs kind of do a bit of everything. So I do use them all-ish. So, Charles Arnold's in the house saying, hi Mike and Kath, hope you had a great Christmas and I wish all your family a happy and prosperous new year. Same to you, Charles. Thank you for that.
If you go
appreciate it.
Writer plays. A letter's been answering a bit.
All right. Writer Plays says, is 74 degrees C in games a normal temperature for an RX 570? Thank you. I wouldn't say it's normal. It's not abnormal because the silicon will go up to kind of 90 degrees before it'll actually start shutting down or thermal throttling. But 74 degrees is a little bit on the high side. I would imagine you're probably trying to play games with uncapped frame rates. So I like VSync turned off. I would say, well, obviously look at your cooling. Make sure you've got airflow in your case, depending on what case it is. Just make sure you've got some ventilation. If other components in this system are also getting to high temperatures as well, then you've definitely got an airflow issue. If it's just the graphics card, then obviously look at the fans, make sure they're spinning freely, make sure there's no dust blocking the fans, and also definitely consider putting VSync on. If you've got a regular monitor, like a 1080p sort of 60 hertz for screen, 60 frames per second or whatever, then you might as well turn VSync on, because the actual extra frames aren't really benefiting you massively. Or on certain games like Counter-Strike Source or some of those types of games, you can go into the developer console and type in FPS max, set a maximum frame rate, so maybe 75 frames per second or something like that. There's no point your graphics card trying to produce way too many frames for a monitor that possibly can't handle it. So definitely take those things into consideration. Hopefully that answers your question slightly. And thank you, Aletta, as well, for joining in with that one. Captain Me's Adventures is asking a question. So this actually can be related to all of you. The best tech of the last decade and also the worst tech of the last decade. That's an interesting question. Ricardo says, hello Mike, I saw your video about the Deepcool Gamax 400 and I bought it last week. Installed it in an AMD FX 6300. Kind of hard to fit, by the way. Drop temps 20 to 22 degrees below. Wow, that is that's a big jump. Was that from the stock cooler? I guess it would be. But yeah, that's a pretty decent drop. Now I have to change the PSU for a 600 watt 80 plus bronze. Thank you so much and have a wonderful new year 2020. Oh, thank you very much. That's super kind of you to let us know. It's always nice to hear a nice story. And again, that was one of the old videos which has done really well. Very pleased with that. Okay, so let's look at some of the more questions we've had come through from viewers. Oh, here we go. This was on the factory reset guide for the AirPod, the TWS 11s. Now, TWS 11s, the ones I had were okay, and they came from a reputable supplier. But there are so many on the market which are absolute trash. Seriously, I was a little bit kind of short with somebody the other day on a question. They asked about these i11s. They bought them from Wish, and they were asking these questions. And it's like, seriously, if you're buying things from Wish, do you actually expect them to work as intended? Wish is pretty much renowned for just selling all kinds of trash. Now you can get some good stuff on there, don't get me wrong, some of it is okay. But if you're buying anything electrical or anything that has a potential problem or anything which is mass market produced and cloned and is known for faults, don't buy it off Wish. Do yourself a favour, spend some money, buy it from somewhere else reputable, or at least somewhere which has got a really good return policy. This is a typical one. This is from Messiah Brown. Who's saying, I power them off, but every time I close the case, it powers back on. Now that actually was one of those things which was quite common in the questions and answers. And actually the pair that I had did until I reset them. So if you do the factory reset on them, normally that should stop happening. But there was a weird thing where if you just turn them off and then put them into the case, if they were still in their shutdown cycle, they would power back on. Now, the only way that I could find around this was, I think if I remember rightly, there was a button on the back, and that was to, when you put them in, press the button on the back, and it stops them powering back on. It just puts it into charge mode. Don't know why it did it, but it was very odd. Some of them do it, and it is a pain in the backside. And I think actually that's something we take for granted on some of these other AirPods and clones. Regardless of which model it is, the older ones, although they were good and they had their kind of quirks, compared with the modern ones of today, the modern ones work so much better with the automatic charging, automatic pairing, all those kinds of things. The very early versions, like a year ago or a year and a half ago, when they started coming out, they weren't great, and the more and more clones that came out, the worse they got. But that's what I would try and do. Press the charge button either before you put them in or after you've put them in, and that should cure it. Although saying that, I did find some more things where I put them on charge, I leave them down here, I'd go up to bed, I'd go to watch the video on my phone, and the audio would be playing through my headphones down here. So I completely get where you're coming from. Yeah, the i11s are a part of my life which I wish I never visited, I got to be honest with you. They were horrendous, but hopefully I've given you some ideas there what you can do. Let's have a look, what else we got. This is more of a comment than it is actually a question. This is from Joe O'Sullivan. This was on the X570 Asus Tough board. Joe says, I've been running this board for about 2 months now. The hardware and features are great, but I really hate just about all the Asus software. Obviously the AI Suite software is crap, it always is. Yep, I'll agree with that. The AI Suite sucks major balls. But yeah, all the motherboard vendors are in the same boat now. I don't think I've found any particular vendor who has been any good at writing software. They generally, it's kind of like a massive afterthought. But what you're saying is the LEDs always stay on even after the PC is asleep. Now, I've actually found that if you go into the Asus Aurora Sync, if you go into, I think there's 3 tabs at the top. They're not actual tabs, but you can see them. And there's one that says, like the scenes. Actually, let me fire it up a minute. I'll see if I can get it to work without crashing the PC. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be there now in a minute. Okay, so yeah, on the Asus Aurora software, it's slightly different on the X570 board because the addressable things, but at the top on this one, on the X370, you've got sync all, next to that you've got settings, and then next to that you've got sync it shutdown. So if you go onto sync it shutdown, you can set it to a different profile, so you can just turn all the LEDs off. So when the PC is turned off or in standby mode, all the lights will turn off, so you don't have to worry about disconnecting your PC. That took me a little while to work that one out. And you also, when you open the software, make sure you right click and choose Open as Administrator. Otherwise, for some reason, the setting doesn't stick. So that is one way of doing it. Yeah, so that way you don't have to have a big red light in your room. Yeah, having a red light in your bedroom is probably not a great idea, depending on what country you live in, because that's, yeah, that could be a recipe for disaster, so don't do that. The Realtek TurboLand software is a joke. It looks like Asus just took a Win32 program from the 80s and put a skin on it, which they probably did. You can go to the options and all the text changes and you're a completely different program, which looks like it was made for an 800 by 600 display. Yeah, it's not great. I haven't bothered installing it, I've got to be honest, so I just left it as it is. It says, no idea what DTS Custom is. It looks like it only works with headphones and there seems to be no audio program or options associated with this at all, except the basic one. It looks like Asus basically concentrated on the hardware side of things and totally skimped on the software. Not that I mind too much, but it is a little scummy. Which kind of reflects almost exactly what I said in the video when I did the review. The X570 Tough Gaming Plus is a great motherboard. It's got so many features on there. And Asus have deliberately skimped on things which people don't possibly need or are not entirely focused on, but they have put a lot of time and effort into good VRMs, good cooling, excellent BIOS. I actually really love the BIOS, apart from when I tried to flash it the other day, but I still haven't released that video. I edited it today. It's an awful video, but watch it. It's funny at the end. It won't help you update your, well actually, it will help you update your BIOS, but yeah, you'll have to watch it and find out. Just watch it. But yeah, Asus have done a really good job on that board. I'm super pleased with it, and from some of you that have actually been in the live chats that we've spoken to and mentioned it, I don't think anybody who's actually bought that board yet has got anything bad to say about it. So yeah, it is a great board. Wow, I got a nice comment from Aletta there, saying, @writer, Mike has some good advice there, give that a try first, and if it doesn't work, shoot it. So Raj says the letter, all the other attempts are fine, just graphics card that I just bought today. If you just bought it today, I suppose it could be potentially a bad card, but it shouldn't really get that warm. Okay, Captain Meets Adventures, the worst things of this decade have been 3D TV. I quite liked 3D TV. Yeah, I did get one of those. I actually liked watching, was it Piranha 3 Double D?
Yeah.
It was Piranha, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Piranha was really good in 3D. That was quite scary. And Final Destination films in 3D, you will shart yourself. It's absolutely terrifying. There's some real jump out moments. Captain Meets Adventure says stock Android is best. Yeah, I'll actually agree with that. Seaman Knight says ASRock software is okay. A-tuning at least is very easy to use. Actually, yeah, I would say of all, I think it probably comes back to the close relationship that ASRock and ASUS had. That I think a lot of their ethos and a lot of the way they work is very similar. And ASRock, in my opinion, I said it earlier and I'll say it again, I'll say it all the time. ASRock, for me, are probably one of the best motherboard manufacturers around at the moment because they generally have kind of 90% of the performance, or maybe even 95% of the performance of the bigger players like ASUS and for to some extent MSI, but their motherboards are so much cheaper. I really was tempted to get an X570 ASRock board just to compare with the Asus one to see how close they actually are in real world terms for the same kind of price point. Like the X570 Steel Legend would be, I think would be a worthy alternative to the X570 Tough. Charles Arnold says, so Windows Mobile Phone still a thing? Well, actually no, Windows Mobile Phone as of today and some of the older iOS phones, today is the day that pretty much they flip the switch. So the Windows Phone Store is going to be deceased and WhatsApp have officially pulled the app as of today. So if you're using an old Windows phone and you like using WhatsApp, tomorrow you won't be. That is it. I'm really sad about it actually because I was one of the kind of the big people that pushed the Windows Phone in my kind of working environment, my personal life and all that. Even got CAF one for her birthday, the 640 XL, which was massive, but it did make her bum look small when it was in her back pocket, so there was always that.
But it did fall down the toilet.
But she accidentally let it fall down the toilet and we took it back to Argos and got a refund. Sorry Argos if you're watching.
Before we did unboxing.
Yeah. It was clean water in there though, to be fair, though it's not, yeah.
It happened before.
It wasn't caca.
It happened before.
Oh dear, that's going off topic. Right, let's have a look at some more questions. So, I'm going to have to reset this now.
Go back to the top.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not a question to me, that's aimed at somebody else. No, I can't see any more. All right, here is one from Joel McQueen. Now this is, again, another ASRock motherboard question. This is for, why is this too small? Ryzen Ready. So this must be the B450M Pro 4. Saying the ASRock website does not list QVL memory for the Matisse CPU, specifically the R5 3600X. What memory will work best? All I can say, Joel, is it does. There is a list actually for Matisse. Actually, I'm going to look it up now because I'm on the website anyway, so it won't take me long to find it. In theory. So where are we? Products. So motherboards. Let me Google that for you. category, so it's the Pro. Intel, don't want Intel. AMD B450 Pro 4. Is that the Pro 4?
It's ASRock B450M HDLV.
Oh, it's the HDV, is it? Sorry, my mistake. Where is that? I can't find it myself now. Right, so was it the B450M HDV R4? That was the one. Okay, so support. And let's go with, where are we? CPU support. Yeah, actually, that's where is? Do you know what? There isn't actually motherboard, graphics card, networking. Yeah, they haven't put on there the QVL for graphics for model name. I wonder if it's under model name finding. No. Wonder if it's in the CPU support list. So let's go for AM4. Yeah, that is really unusual. I've never known that before. So yeah, you're quite right. Well, all I can say for that is anything which works well with a B450 chipset, in theory, should work well. Now, I would ideally stick to known brands, G.Skill, Corsair, who else can I think of really? I would probably steer clear of lesser known brands, if I'm completely honest with you. So someone like V-Color that I've worked with, although they're very good quality RAM, it's potentially not going to be on the list, so I would possibly avoid it if you want easy installation. Corsair, generally, you can't go wrong, so if you go with the Corsair LPX RAM, that pretty much works with anything. Speed-wise, I would probably stick to 3200, don't go above there, there's no real need to. Crucial Ballistics will probably be a good one to go for. I'm trying to think what else. Ballistics are generally good, although they were awful with the AM3 setups. Really didn't like them in that. That was DDR3 though, so different ball game. Yeah, G.Skill, GL, RAM's always good. That's kind of decent. But really, G.Skill, Corsair, you can't go too wrong with. And you do find that a lot of motherboard manufacturers, their listings do heavily consist of G.Skill and Corsair RAM modules because they do seem to be the market leaders. So I would essentially go with them. But yeah, that's unusual. I don't know why ASRock haven't put a memory support list on there. That is very odd. If I do find it, or find another link to it, then I'll pass it on to you. I'm wondering if it's actually going to be the same as the other version.
You can check on Crucial's site by Motherboard.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Is that Seamanite? Yeah, I thought it would be. Seamanite said if you go to the Crucial website, the memory checker, you can do it like a reverse way. So you can choose your RAM, then choose your motherboard and all that kind of stuff. And you should be able to do it from that way. That's a really good way of doing it. Kingston offer a similar solution. I'm not sure if G.Skill do, but definitely there's some options for you there. I was going to have a look on the other board now, the revision, the first revision, if it'll let me go back that far. HDV and support. Oh, right, yeah, that has got support. So why is that one not then? Ah, yes, it is there. It's a little bit further down, but not for Matisse. Yeah, Raven Ridge, Pinnacle Ridge, Summit Ridge. Interesting. I honestly don't know the answers to that. That is an interesting one. If anyone else can find out and let me know, that would be dead handy. So let's have a look at another question, and actually let's have a quick look in the chat, see what is going on. Ricardo's made a good comment there. The ASRock graphics cards are hotter than the rest of the cards. Perhaps you should undervolt it a little bit. Definitely worth a go. Duxty Duck says, thanks dude, last time you helped me to understand why my GPU is throttling, so I followed your steps and now my GPU is working fine on 65-degree temps to from 86. Blimey, that's a bit of a jump. Happy days. Ability 10's in the house. Good evening, Ability. Hope you're doing okay. John Longbow says, hello, did not know you had a stream going. Yeah, YouTube does that sometimes. It doesn't always send out notifications. Seamanite says, try undervolting P9 on Wattman with your RX 570 by 500 millivolts, and test it, 50 millivolts, words is hard, and test it with a repeatable benchmark, so something like Heaven, ideally, anything like that. Ricardo says, I'd rather Crucial in RAM and SSD. Cool. John Longbow's just joined. Angry Doe says, every time you say Matisse, it just alerts me when I'm daydreaming.
That is the name.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Why is he daydreaming?
Well, you know what it's like, if you're daydreaming at school or whatever and someone calls your name.
I know, but why is he daydreaming?
Yeah, stop daydreaming. Alexa says, my 5700 XT average temp is 56 degrees with a max of 64. That's pretty awesome. John Longbow says, what are we talking about? Yes, RAM. RAM and compatibility. We do find that is one of the... There's always a set of questions. It's like, will my processor work with my motherboard? That is always a thing. And again, all you need to do is just look on the website. Hopefully you should find it, unlike we did with the ASRock memory, but generally most of your questions will be answered actually on the website. So take a few minutes, thoroughly investigate your purchases. I know it's super easy, and in this kind of environment now we expect all the answers to be like snap, 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 but do it the old-fashioned way. Watch some videos, go to the websites, investigate your products, and you actually find if you do investigate what it is you're looking at buying, you'll find you'll learn more, and then you'll know more, and when you learn more and you know more, generally you can save money. So ultimately, if you're trying to save money and make some good buying decisions, do some research. That is the golden rule, really. Don't rely on other people's advice. Know what you're doing, and know about what you're doing, essentially.
See what might put a link.
Angry Doe says, I'm just thinking about what my PC will look like and when I'm going to get it. And Supermanite's actually put a link in the chat as well, so if you're with us live now and you want to check out your RAM, or actually if you're watching this video on the replay, then if your questions are similar and you want to know what RAM works with your motherboard or processor or whatever, you can use the Crucial link there that Supermanite has kindly put in there. So I think we're pretty much up to date. There's a couple more questions. Let's go through and answer a couple more questions, and then we'll... oh, my phone's gone into night mode. That was a bit of a shock to the system. So I need to get rid of some of these so I can actually see what's going on. So Brosy, Ugly Bob, Billy Bob, SV Contour, done that one, and that one, and that one. Doesn't work on Android 9, thanks. Sorry about this. Okay. Let's refresh. Right, okay then. Right, this is from Firstborn, as in Jason Bourne, and this was on the Cheap or Trash. So this was the, I think it's the Asus A320K-M or M-K, whichever way round it was, and this was This was a couple of days ago, so it says, I need help. I'm not sure what to get along with this motherboard. Is it better to get a Ryzen 2200G and 4 gigs of RAM, or the Athlon 200GE with 8 gigs of RAM? And do both of these need BIOS update? Sorry if it's a weird question, I'm very new at building a PC. Well, firstborn, don't worry about it. Essentially, we all got to start somewhere. Like I said, ask questions, do your research, have a look at videos, see what the benchmarks are. Now, you haven't said what it is you're actually using the PC for, so that is kind of going to be a slightly decisive factor. This is a difficult one actually, because if you're using Windows 10, which I'm assuming you're going to be, 4 gigs of RAM is not a lot to run Windows 10. But saying that, if you buy an Athlon 200GE with 8 gigs of RAM, you'll soon find that your Athlon 200G is run out of horsepower, especially if it's for gaming. So in my opinion, I would go with the Ryzen 2200G. So spend a little bit more on the CPU, get your 4 gigs of RAM, but then you can always add another 4 gigs of RAM after, which is going to be a much better setup than what it would be when you have an Athlon 200G with 8 gigs of RAM, because where are you going to go from there? Doubling up from 8 to 16 gigs, yeah, okay, that's going to be an upgrade, but the upgrade from 8 gigs to 16 gigs of RAM on Athlon 200GE isn't going to be as big of a jump as being on the Ryzen 2200G with 4 gigs of RAM and then upgrading to 8, which will give you a much more balanced system. You'll have 2 extra real cores. You will have the Vega 8 graphics rather than the Vega 3 graphics. The Athlon 200GE is really for some very specific, very low budget systems where perhaps they're going to be used as like a kiosk PC or just for web browsing, that kind of thing. If you've got any intention on doing any multitasking, any gaming or anything like that, the Athlon 200G, although it can be overclocked and you can squeeze a little bit more out of it, for me personally, I would say it's not a particularly good purchase. It's fine if you can pick one up cheap, secondhand or whatever, fine, do that. In fact, I've done the same myself. I've bought an Athlon 200G and 8 gigs of RAM because it was super cheap. So I did it purely because it would be good to test with, and I'm actually using it as my media PC in the front room. So it's very limited on what it does. And for that purpose, it's absolutely fine. But for a general all-round purpose PC, for light gaming or whatever, it's not great for it, and it's kind of almost at the end of its life when you're using it straight away. So I would avoid the Athlon 200GE. The 3200GE is going to be a better option if you can, but better still, the Ryzen 2200G or the 3200G is going to be a much better buy for you. You haven't said where you are, what country you're in, what the prices are like or anything, so I can't really help you with that. Big Bruh Moment is actually answered already a couple of times, saying get 8 gig no matter what. I see what you mean there, but don't confuse the issue that the 200G is a far inferior processor than the Ryzen 2200G rather. So
3200G a better option than the 220G.
Yeah. It would be really interesting to know actually, firstborn, what your budget is, where you live, what you're doing. Let us know where you are and we can probably help you out and maybe push you in the right direction for some super killer deals. Yeah, that's about it. It's saying about, yeah, because as Big Bro said in the comments here, some of your memory actually is going to be taken up by the GPU actually on the chip. So even though you've got 8 gigs or 4 gigs, you're actually going to be losing at least a gig of that or half a gig due to how you set up the motherboard for the cache for the GPU. So it's going to be that's going to be pretty horrendous. So I would strongly suggest a Ryzen 2200G and 8 gigs of RAM. Beg, steal, borrow, whatever you need to do. Just get a bit more money. Go with 8 gigs of RAM with a 2200G. Get a single 8 gig stick, and then because on that motherboard you've only got 2 slots, so at some point later on down the line you can buy another 8 gig stick to double up to 16. Use your dual channel, which will give you a bigger improvement. Don't buy 2 4 gig sticks at the moment because it's still not great, especially for gaming. Again, some of your memory is going to be taken up by the graphics card. You're going to be limited to like 5.7 gigs or 6 gigs of RAM in Windows, which isn't the ideal scenario. But again, you haven't said where you are, prices, etc., or what your situation is, so maybe you're on a super tight budget. If you're on a really super tight budget, it might even be worth going for something older. Maybe see if you can pick up an older, maybe an old Intel i5 2600K and 8 gigs of RAM on a motherboard, something along those lines. But again, let us know what's going on and we'll see if we can point you in the right direction.
Maybe comments, because there's a few answers on that one.
Okay.
Comments.
Okay, let's have a look. So, let's have a look what's going on the chat here.
See my night's linking down from
See, John. Dusty Duck says you deserve more subscribers. Oh, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. They'll come in time. We're not in any hurry. We're here for the long haul, so we're going to be around for, well, fingers crossed, God willing, and all that kind of stuff. We'll be around for a while. John Longbow says, for my Ryzen, my choice is usually G-Skill or Corsair Vengeance. It just works with Ryzen 2000 and 3000 series for B450, X470 and X570. And yes, always check motherboard manufacturer's website for support. Definitely. Letter says, right, learn about your PC's components. That's the one reason I like to overclock. I like to learn more about my motherboard, CPU and RAM. Yeah, it's always good to know what the limitations of your hardware are and to know what can and can't be done, even if you're going to extremes. John says, Crucial also has very good compatibility. Charles Arnold says, how frequently should one upgrade a games machine? Yeah, that's a really open-ended question, Charles. And actually, thank you for that question, because that is quite a good one. How often should you upgrade a gaming machine? Well,
C. McKnight's answered it a little
yeah,
bit.
C. McKnight's answered it. If ain't broke, don't fix it, which I agree. And Alette's pretty much hit the nail on the head. Upgrade your machine when it won't play the games you want to play, which is pretty much what I've, give or take, generally always done. There were certain games that came out. I remember back in the day, the first Batman, Arkham Asylum, came out, and it was one of the first games to take real advantage of the what was it? Was it the CUDA cores in the GeForce graphics card? Oh no, PhysX. It was PhysX was baked into the GTS graphics cards, and I went and bought a GTS 250 from M Squared, a local computer shop, and that was about £130, I think, for I think it was a 512. Is it 512? It might have been no, sorry, it was a 1 gig graphics card, and yeah, and that actually allowed me to play that game with the settings turned up, not even on maximum, just on like a highest setting, or to enable that PhysX. So when Batman was swinging through, there was flags that were hanging from the ceiling, and there was like fog effects. So if you walk through a section, the fog would kind of swirl around you and all those kinds of things. So it actually made the game really come to life, and that was one of the things which I thought, yeah, that makes sense to upgrade at that time. And even going back further than that, there was
Sims 2, you did mine.
Sims 2 for Kath. We upgraded hers because she couldn't play that, or it was really sluggish. But essentially that's what it comes down to. If your computer won't play the games you want to play, it's time to upgrade. For those of us that haven't got kind of endless pockets, or get stuff given to us or sent to us, then yeah, totally, that is a way. There's no point upgrading until you need to. Or if you're thinking, well, there's an upgrade coming in the next couple of months, or there's a game coming out and this is the recommended specs, but it's Black Friday and there's a deal on this graphics card or this CPU or this motherboard, then sure, go for it. Go ahead, try and get it early and snag yourself a bargain. You may well do so. But essentially, it does come down to what has been said there. Firstly, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you need to upgrade because the game's running like crap, or maybe you've just got a new monitor, a new bigger monitor, so you've taken the jump from 1080p to 1440, or maybe even 4K, and you're finding that at those resolutions your games are starting to struggle, then sure, go for your upgrade then. But if you don't need to, then there's no reason why you should. And you quite often find if you do an upgrade, especially if it's a big one, like motherboard, processor, RAM, or even CPU on its own sometimes, you might find that Windows will get its hair off and decide that it wants you to re-register or re-license your copy of Windows if you've got an OEM license. So sometimes actually upgrading can be a real pain in the backside and actually cause you a lot of problems. And for some people, when you're putting a new motherboard and processor in an ideal world, really, you want to do a fresh install just to make sure that everything's running as it should be. But again, for some people, that's not always practical because they've got work documents or other things, other software which has been licensed or whatever. So it's not always practical to do that. So don't upgrade unless you need to, really. Don't be pressurized by all the kind of hype in the press and YouTube videos saying, oh yeah, this graphics card's fantastic, it will do X, Y, Z. If you're happy with your system, you're happy with your system. There's no need to upgrade. You don't feel pressurized into doing it just because there's something new on the market. Let's have a look what else knows. Seamanite says, in reference to that question earlier, I guess, the 3200G is a better option than the 2200G now. Yeah, definitely. If they're the same price, then go for that. We'll have to find out from the guy and see, or the girl, whichever, and see what their situation is and see what their budget is. Sometimes there's a people have got a reason for why they've gone for specific components, or it might be just because of kind of, without sounding rude, lack of knowledge. So if they've seen a lot of reviews for a 2200G, maybe they're not up to date and don't know about newer CPUs that are available at a similar price or a similar kind of product stack. So maybe they just don't know about it. So hopefully we can help them out. Ollie MB says, hello Mike. Hi Ollie, how you doing? John Longbow says, please don't steal. Alexa says, none of the APUs make sense to me for gaming. For high resolution gaming and for kind of higher end gaming, they definitely don't. But having said that, I've happily played things like Rocket League, Counter-Strike Source on the Vega 3, Vega 8, Vega 11, and it's been an enjoyable experience. I'm not one of these people that kind of go ultra out for graphics and realism. I'd rather have a fluid gameplay at a lower resolution, even with jagged edges, than I would having it all look crisp and staggering gameplay. I don't like that. So for me, the APUs work absolutely fine. Letter says, right, don't steal unless you can get away with it. Definitely. Matthew Day's in the house. Good evening, Matthew Day. Upgrading is like a length of elastic. Some stretch it a long way before they ping forward, others drag along steadily. That's a very good analogy. I like that. Seemlight makes a good comment actually. Maybe look at an R3 1200 and a R9 270 or 270X. Should be able to get both of them cheap, hopefully. Yeah, definitely. That's another good alternative. Angry Dish says, hey, my PC case came with a hard disk drive LED cable. Is that good or bad?
It doesn't come with.
Oh, my PC doesn't come. No, it doesn't matter. It's only so you know if there's any hard drive activity. It's almost a relic of the past, almost. John Longbow says, is it me or is the stream lagging sometimes? Could be, or it might just be me lagging. It's been a long day.
Feels like we've done a week today.
Yeah, I do feel like we've compacted. Why am I still wearing my glasses on my head? Probably got a bloody glasses mark on my shiny bonce.
That will spin over your head to start the day off.
Yeah. Alessa says, I've got a great gaming PC. Maybe someday I might start playing games. Always a good time to start.
There's no good games out there.
Angry Doe says, also, there is a motherboard standoff which I need to take out. Since the motherboard, the MSI Tomahawk Max B450, doesn't need one there, is there a way I could take it out anyway? Yeah, normally you just use like a socket wrench and they should come out. If it's one that's been welded in place, then generally you do need it. And if it's actually underneath the motherboard, then you probably do need it because they normally put them in a place like the central one. So that is the one that pretty much every board on the planet will need. So maybe you've misaligned it. If it's one that's around the outside of the board, then yeah, you should be able to just use a box spanner or a pair of pliers, or don't use tweezers, but you should be able to take it out. If you're not sure, put a picture on Discord and we'll point you in the right direction. Charles Arnold says, when upgrading, which is the most significant, memory, processor or motherboard? Now that is that is a very interesting question. Now the most significant generally, I would say, is probably going to be the processor. The processor is ultimately what's going to give you your speed. Based on frequency, cores, all that kind of stuff. So the processor is like the engine. Memory is like the amount of seats you got in the car, and the motherboard is the car chassis itself. So like most things, it's all about balance. So it's pointless having a Ferrari engine in a mini shell with only one seat. So it's all about making it balanced. So ideally you want a nice big engine, nice big chassis, plenty of seats. That's a terrible analogy, but hopefully you get what I mean. But essentially, processor is going to give you speed. Memory is going to give you flexibility to run more programs at the same time. Memory isn't always as important as people make out. The difference between 4 gigs and 8 gigs is massive. The difference between 8 gigs and 16 is less so, and 16 to 32 for most people is negligible. So again, depending on what it is you're doing, if you're running games or video editing software or 100 different Chrome tabs, then that is going to be dependent on how much memory you actually need. Most people don't need more than 8 gigs, to be completely honest with you. Most games still at the moment will only probably use 8 gigs. Some are starting to use more than that now because of texture storage and stuff like that, or bigger maps. But it's kind of 8 gigs to 16 gigs is kind of the sweet spot. 16 is probably the kind of safety zone.
Charles Arnold likes your analogy to a car, and he should have mentioned the GPU as well.
Oh yeah. All right. If you Charles Arnold, if you take into consideration the GPU as well, so let's see, how can I analogy that? So your GPU is your windscreen and your windows. So if you imagine your computer as a...
You're really there, aren't you?
I was there now, yeah. If your computer was a tank, where you had this super strong chassis, super powerful engine, loads of seats inside, but you're trying to look at everything through a tiny little slit, i.e. a rubbish graphics card, then for most purposes that's pointless. So ideally you want something which is as robust, but has lots of visibility or can show you a lot of image. So a wider screen in gaming terms. So a decent GPU with a decent motherboard and a good processor and adequate RAM is going to be fine. But again, it's all about balance. No point having a super fast graphics card if your CPU can't throw enough frames at it to be processed. Likewise, there's no point having a super fast CPU which is throwing tons and tons of frames at the graphics card, and the graphics card is waving a white flag and saying, look, I can't deal with all this. This is the best I can do. So yeah, balance is where it comes from. Charlie Bolden says hello. Hi, Charlie. And hello to Nigel Gilmore. Oh dear, here it goes. Alexa says, when planning a new PC, the GPU should be 50% of the budget. Yeah, GPUs generally now are quite expensive. And yeah, I don't know, GPU 50% of the budget for gamers, for hardcore gamers, 50% of the budget is probably where you want to be looking. For me personally, because I do a mixed workload of video editing, research, and some gaming on the side, I'm more tempted to go with kind of maybe 30% of my budget of the PC, sometimes possibly less, because the gaming side of it, isn't really where I'm at. Matthew Day says, I had a link for a bottleneck predictor and now you can't find it. There are quite a few actually. If you just do that, PC bottlenecks or PC bottleneck guide or something, you'll see which ones, it'll give you an idea. John Longbow says, game mods usually take up a lot of additional RAM like Skitty Skylines or Skyrim. They can get really out of hand when in heavily modded games. Up to and above 16 gigs can happen. Yeah, that's true actually, it does. Also as well, what you have to consider is when game developers are actually designing software, games, whatever it is, they generally will design a game at the kind of the broadest possible spectrum of potential users. Now what I mean by that is if you go onto Steam and look at the PC list of what do they call it? They do it every year. Basically it's a Steam hardware guide, so it gives you an idea of what is the most popular equipment and kind of like what the widest amount of people are using. So when game developers are creating a game, they'll look at that and say, right, most people have only got 4 cores, so we'll try and design the game around 4 cores, but maybe we can scale it so it'll do more. Most people are using 8 gigs of RAM, so we'll aim at that. Most people are 1080p, so we'll try and aim it at that. And that's how it goes through. And what sort of graphics card? So say for instance, most people, or the largest majority of people are running maybe like a GTX 1060 or 1050. So game developers will that'll be their sweet spot. They will allow it so that games will run higher, but they generally aim for that sweet spot because there's no point designing a game which needs like an i9 to run it, a 1080 minimum and 32 gigs of RAM. Because then the potential market to sell that game is such a small kind of 1 or 2% of the PC market, they're never going to sell a game. And it's very rare that a game will come along which will only run at that specs. Something like Crysis years ago was kind of one of those where it would run quite badly on unoptimized or lower end systems. But so generally, most games will scale down to the kind of the mid-range or lowest denominator. Stephen Simmons says, Mike, please do an overclocking guide video. I've used MSI Boost on my 3600 to get the cores up to 4.2 gigahertz. Is it that simple? To be honest with you, quite often it can be, yes. Overclocking is one of those things where it is good fun to do, but it depends again what kind of user you are. Now I generally don't overclock my systems at all now. I put the precision boost on and that is pretty much it. Sometimes if I'm messing around or playing around, I'll see what I can get out of a CPU when I first installed it, just to see what it can do. But then after that, generally I'll dial back the settings because I don't need it to be that hot or to run that aggressively all the time. And because I've got like 3 systems around me, the last thing I need, especially when I'm recording videos, is for there to be fans making a noise or to be just draining loads of power unnecessarily. So quite often I'll just let the precision boost do what it wants to do. I'll let the systems happily sit idle. Now for overclocking, generally the rule of thumb is to get to the absolute peak is to run everything kind of balls to the wall as fast as it can and hold it there, and don't use things like boosts and things like that because you want to hold it. All core boost is what they generally refer to. So in that position, you don't want your cores going up and down because you get power spikes as well. And normally with a really good overclock, you want to try and keep it held there and at that stable frequencies rather than it jumping around and trying to boost all over the place. So I prefer my systems to run efficiently and cool and quiet if at all possible. So I just let Windows take care of it. But again, it is really good fun to try and overclock it just to see what it will do. We've got Thor Odinson. Good evening, Thor. Angry Doge says, how much do you think GPUs would be worth if there wasn't Bitcoin mining? I think the Bitcoin mining thing is kind of gone now. I don't think that is really a factor in GPU pricing. Most of the mining has gone over to ASIC CPUs now, so GPUs really are kind of not really doing that anymore. I think GPUs are pretty much where they were 2.5, 3 years ago, so I don't think it's really changed. I don't think it'll go down very much less than that. Most companies, it costs the same for a graphics card to be produced, whether it's the high end or the low end. There's all those factors involved. For most companies, there isn't any benefit in selling a load of cheap graphics cards. So if they can concentrate on the mid-range and the high end, it's much better for them, as in getting money back. So I don't think prices are going to come down much lower. Generally, your entry-level card is you're kind of like £100 to £150. Your mid-range is kind of the 200 to 300, and then you've got your high end, which is kind of like your 500 upwards. Nigel Gilmore says, what favourite item you ever unboxed? I think I answered that before, but I can't remember what it was now. What was the best thing I unboxed? Or
was it the tender you said, but it wasn't the best thing you've unboxed?
The best thing to unbox, I think, at the time was probably the either the i9s or i10 TWS headphones, because it was just so easy. I just took them out of the box, showed them around a little bit, put them in my ears, told people what I thought of them, and that was it. It was like, that was really, really easy. And those videos got loads and loads of views, like really early on. It's like, oh, well, that was a bit easy. I didn't even really want to review them, but I tried them, so, oh yeah, okay, I'll give them a go. And it was like an easy 5-10 minute video, and they done really well. So that, from a kind of a channel growth or kind of a monetary value, really, they were really good, and I was sent them for free, so it didn't cost me anything. So it was one of those videos which made quite a lot of money and was almost, I think I filmed it in probably less than 15 minutes, and it took me probably about another 10 minutes to edit. It was really straightforward. So videos like that are always really good. My favourite product, I think, was probably, that's a difficult one. I think the Tender MW3 was probably the product which I've unboxed, which I thought was, which was the most valuable thing and probably the most beneficial thing that we've done in the house. It has improved our Wi-Fi in the house immeasurably. It was absolutely horrendous before, and especially with all the smart home things like the cameras, the Wi-Fi stuff, the Wi-Fi lights, switches, sensors, the Hive system. It's so nice for it all to be just on one network name rather than having kind of like rear, middle, front, and having all these different access points. It was absolutely horrendous. So yeah, I think those are probably, there's some things which I look forward to unboxing. Cases I genuinely enjoy unboxing, they're really good. I like to see a new case, especially one I haven't seen before. And sometimes I'll deliberately not look at the websites to see anything firsthand, so when I take it out of the box it's completely new. That's quite nice.
Alice was a nice one, right?
Yeah, Inwin Alice, actually, that was quite an interesting one. I'm trying to think. Actually got some fans coming up, which I did a sneak preview of on Saturday. Those I'm really looking forward to actually installing and setting up. I wanted to do it today, but I've had so many things to do that I haven't got those done. But that'd be one I want to do. So I think that's pretty much that. Lester says my PC is only overclocked when I'm doing benchmarks, then I'll dial it back and undervolt everything. Yeah, that pretty much reflects what I was saying earlier. Having an overclocked PC or being able to overclock a PC is great, and it's cool to see what you can get out of it, but you don't really want to have that 24/7 like that, especially if it's like your main PC or you've got multiple PCs. It's just a waste of time, not a waste of time, but it's a waste of energy, waste of resources, and you're potentially shortening the life of your components. John Longbow says, best unboxing ever for me, Christmas many years ago on an iPhone 4S. That's, yeah, the 4S, that was a great phone. Apart from Bandgate, wasn't it? Where you had the antenna was the band around it, so as soon as you held it with your hand, you lost the antenna signal.
I don't think 4, I think that was more the 4s.
Yeah, 4 and 4S they were the same design. The 5 was the one where it slightly changed. Rodrigo, didn't say it right. Rodrigo, what do you think about the Wraith Prism? I can get one for like £10, but I already bought a Freezer 34 Duo. Do you think I should sell it and buy the Prism? Well, the Prism is definitely the nicer looking of the two, I would argue. The Prism is a nice looking cooler. It's not as effective as the Freezer 34 Duo, but it certainly does look better. So it depends where you're at, what CPU you're using, all that kind of stuff. Martin Brooks says hello. Hello. How are you? So, who else have we got? Yeah, Seamanite says the Freezer 34 is better than the Prism.
Rodrigo's using a Ryzen 3 3200.
Ah, right, Ryzen 3 3200. Gee, ooh. That was, yeah. If you're using a Ryzen 3 2200G, I'd be tempted probably to go with the Prism, because it's not going to generate that much heat. You'll probably keep it well within its thermal envelope, so yeah, I would probably go with save some money. The Freezer 34 will keep it cooler and quieter, so again, depending on what you're doing, if you're using it for some sort of media center and you need it to be like super quiet, then the Freezer 34 is going to be a bit quieter without having to modify the fan profiles too much. But yeah, that should, I think that should pretty much do it. Right, I think that's pretty much it. I'm getting such a sore throat, so I'm going to stop chatting like a lunatic, and hopefully that is it. There's another couple of questions come in, so I'll quickly answer those. Martin Brooks says, do you know any good streaming sites? I remember watching your YouTube video about TTV. I think it's closed now. Yes, TTV has gone, unfortunately. I used to love TTV, that was a great site. There is another few that are around at the moment. Most of them, though, tend to have like crazy pop-ups everywhere. There was 1234-movies, which is okay, I think. But I haven't really done a lot of research on it at the moment. There seems to be so many streaming sites that pop up and change their URLs, and you never quite know what you're going to come up against. So essentially, until something as good as TTV comes up again, I can't really wholeheartedly recommend any particular one streaming site, because they're all pretty dodgy, to be honest with you. At least TTV you could run as like a standalone app or on an Android phone. It seemed okay. I never had any problems with it, so yeah, hopefully something like that will come back. I think that pretty much does it. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. So thank you all so much for joining in tonight. Hopefully it hasn't been too boring. Hopefully I've answered some of your questions, and for those of you that I have, hopefully yeah, let us know by sticking a like on the video if you watch it, and let us know. For those of you in the chat, live chat, who've helped out, that's been fantastic, and you've answered some of the questions while I've been jabbering away like a crazy thing. Again, thank you all so much for joining us on the stream tonight. Now tomorrow is New Year's Eve, so I'm not too sure whether we're going to be releasing a video or doing a stream. Maybe if there's enough requests for it, we'll try and do it. We'll probably have to stay up till midnight anyway, even though we're old farts now, and generally we'll probably be in bed by 10 o'clock. Oh, and Kath's got to go to work on New Year's Day, so that sucks the major balls. But we'll see. Maybe we'll do a live stream tomorrow, possibly. So if you want to join us for that, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, chime icon, and notifications, and you will be notified when there's a video released. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you've had a good time. If we don't speak to you or see you, have a fantastic new year, and try not to drink too much because you will regret it the next year. Anyway, I'm Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next live stream. Thanks for watching.